say we're in the worst drought in 1,200 years. They say that California will never be the same. And today, despite these dire predictions, you are about to hear perhaps the most entertaining and thought-provoking Toastmaster speech of the year. Why do the news media and advertisers insist on hyperbole, exaggeration, or going to the extremes? A lot of times you'll see things in the news, such as worst drought in 1,200 years, or worst drought ever, or driest winter ever, and sometimes they're right. Sometimes it's more an exaggeration. They gravitate towards the hyperbole. And then this makes sense for sales, because for whatever reason we're attracted to that which is on the extreme, the best or the worst. It doesn't really matter. So for getting our attention. Now, if you want to buy something, we're usually gravitating toward the best, right? Nobody advertises the worst gas mileage in America or the worst 5-star rating for their car. It's always the best 5-star rating or the best reputation for their products. So this makes sense from a sales perspective, but from a news perspective, okay, there's a bit of sales in news too, right? If you're not buying the periodical or clicking on the links at the web page, they're not making money. So I can appreciate that they're trying to get your attention. But sometimes I wonder if there's not something else going on here at the same time. Are they trying to manipulate us in some way? Are they trying to persuade us from the get-go? Now, I will read the Sacramento Bee when it shows up on time in my front porch, and I'll click through the news and I'll listen to NPR. So I get what I like to think is a varied mix of information. I would like to think NPR tries to be a little more objective, and I think generally they are, but they still do gravitate towards that which attracts attention. In my job, I often have to talk with the press. I often, much more so in the past, but even today I'll talk to the press occasionally. And you can hear the disappointment in their voice when it's not the lowest Oroville's ever been, or the driest December on record. It's the fourth driest. Fourth driest. But one time I was like, so this has got to be one of the worst winters ever. I was like, well, actually, it's about 13th driest winter ever. Really, when you go back our 70s, and they're just like, they're almost flabbergasted. They're like, I don't even have a story at all at this point. There's nothing they can spin for. You can hear them almost just like, what else you got? I find it entertaining. I find it frustrating as well, because when they're talking about stuff that I deal with at work, I'm always drawn to it. And so I'll read it. Now sometimes I'll see that, okay, that was just the teaser that got me in. They're actually pretty accurate. They've got their facts straight. When you actually read the full article, well, yeah, that was a reasonable presentation. It didn't really live up to the hype of the headline. I don't read every article, even if it's gripping, because that might not interest me or I might not have the time. But how much of my idea towards that subject is now been influenced by that headline? Racist police run rampant in Baltimore, right? I'm not saying that was an actual headline, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was one somewhere. Now they might go through and actually you find out that there is a problem, and we probably all assume there is a problem because that's all we've been hearing about. I haven't read a detailed expose on all the things that are happening in Baltimore. I don't know. I don't live there. For all I know, the place is complete chaos, and it's just, you know, it's cops in body armor patrolling the streets, shooting people outside. Or maybe one particular neighborhood is suffering because there's a high crime rate and the cops are desensitized to everything there, and so they just treat everyone wrong or badly because that's just how it's been for 10 years, and they just don't, you know, they've got a cycle that's been going on. I've heard a little bit of that too. I haven't, but I don't know. So how many people that aren't maybe taking the time to read more or listening to a more involved article or don't know are just making assumptions? Right? So then it's like, hey, let's go to DC and see the Capitol. So they go, hey, I got tickets to a Ravens game. Where's that? In Baltimore. I'm up in Baltimore. You know, already, just because they have some preconceived notion because of the way the press articulates a story that involves their town. This to me is a disservice to the public. I am not here to provide you alternatives to this. I have no way of I don't have a well thought out rationale to combat this, because I think they're poking on something in human nature. The only thing I think we can do about it is to not believe everything we read, or more to the point, not believe the headlines we read. Read, think for yourself, find some other articles. That's the nice thing about the internet. You don't have to just read what comes to you in your paper. You can look at the different sources of news and see the different spins on things. And beware the hyperbole. I was researching a little bit of this talk, and I came across this link on this subject to a Daily Show Jon Stewart bit. And he was pulling out headlines that used words like eviscerate. Stewart eviscerates O'Reilly. And he was making fun of this because, of course, to literally eviscerate someone would be to cut out their intestines and pull them out, right? He didn't physically do this. In fact, he just jabbed at them verbally. Now, not every major respected newspaper would use such extreme terms, but they're out there. So my final thought imparting to you is to not believe everything you read in the headlines. Take the time to think it through, do a little more research. And when you're done with that, go out and see the biggest movie of the year in the Avengers, on your way to the lowest prices of the season at Macy's, while picking up the best hamburger you've ever eaten. Mr. Douglas.